restoring men and history. Truth, beauty, goodness. How often do we talk about it? How often does it need to be addressed and talked about? I read this piece late last night. I liked it. We're bringing it to you. L. Purnell, the Federalist. Misinformation is the vocabulary of a culture that has lost its capacity to discuss what? Truth. And truth is so important right now, especially, but always through history, right? Truth, goodness, and beauty should be leading the way, right? Society needs to know truth, beauty, and goodness, don't we? If we want to have an exceptional society. If we want to be the America we love, we need truth, beauty, goodness, and we need to know what those are.
If you think it's important to build better, stronger men, please subscribe. We would appreciate it.
I think we'll come back and do these again. Anyway, at the beginning, there's a image here that says, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Right? From the Bible, right? The perversion of truth is falsehood. Misinformation is just the perversion of information. Now, let's go into her piece here again. In a preliminary injunction issued against the White House and federal agencies on Tuesday in Missouri v. Biden, Judge Terry Doughty eviscerated, I like that word, eviscerated, government actors for colluding with social media companies. And this is really terrifying. This is on the way to tyranny, 1984, Big Brother, the Ministry of Truth. To censor users' protected speech in the name of eliminating misinformation. This is why we wrote the First Amendment, by the way. This is important. Let's hold on here. We wrote the First Amendment so that you could disagree with the federal government. And here's the federal government with agencies colluding with social media companies to censor users, you. That was protected. That was fought for. We fought for you to have that right. And you can see how totalitarians work and how tyranny works. They move what? They move away from freedom to anti-freedom. They move away from free speech to anti-free speech. You can trace that in the societies and in those governments and in those countries. When you go away from gun rights, when you go away from free speech, you move to what? Tyranny. So watch that. Smart cities moving to tyranny. We need to get to those. Doughty, as others have done, compares the government censorship, here you go, to Orwell's hypothetical, and this is good. I like that he did this. Great judge here, I think. Well, maybe. But anyway, on this case, he looks good so far. Ministry of Truth. But Orwell's satirical title, I like the way he writes, gives the speech police too much credit. It assumes truth is still a functional part of their vocabulary. Now, what are we going here? Our censors speak in terms of misinformation. You see that? And that's why we need to restore the truth. We're always restoring things here, aren't we? We're going to restore the truth too. We have a lot to do, gentlemen, ladies. The perversion of truth is falsehood. Restore the republic. Misinformation is just the perversion of information. Truth has what? A moral component. Information doesn't, right? Years of moral relativism have eroded our cultural understanding of truth. This is so true. This is such a good piece. As a knowable, agreed upon concept. And in our modern world, all we're left with is what? Information. And you're information overloaded, right? On purpose, right? Truth discerned in nature by reason. For most of Western history, philosophers and laymen alike have agreed upon the existence of truth as a factual concept, but also what? A moral one. And this is what we're getting away from in America, what we've been getting away from and why. Plato said, and get this, this is another good one, the true philosophers were those who are lovers of the vision of truth. Are you out there lovers of the vision of truth? Are you against the truth? Which one? Who are lovers of the vision of truth? By the way, when you look at electeds and you look at that new Michigan law going in, you can say the Michigan people are not philosophers and not lovers of what? The truth with that law. They don't want the truth to be known. Maybe we'll go into that. I doubt it. Which he described in terms of an ideal reality that transcended the imperfect reflections of truth, goodness, and beauty in the natural world. Truth, beauty, goodness. And in the Michigan law, it seems like it's anti-freedom. Seems like to me like that Michigan law is purposely to intimidate you into using pronouns and to assisting that agenda. But let's go back to this. These are important, right? Truth, goodness, and beauty in the natural world. And we didn't know what that is. Similarly, Cicero believed in the existence of a natural law that could be understood via man's reason. Christianity describes the law being written what? On the heart of men, right? In similar terms, and presents the good, true, and beautiful. And remember, too, as originating from and perfectly fulfilled in God, right? So, and remember, whatever is true, good, and beautiful, you focus on that, right? Paul said, but let's stick with this. Presents the good, true, and beautiful from God. The Bible refers to Christ as the Logos, the Word of God, a term closely associated with wisdom, reason, and truth. And wisdom is important, right? And if you go back into the Proverbs, what's it talking about? Wisdom. And where does wisdom come from? You get your wisdom from where? God. Elsewhere, Christ describes himself as what? The way, the truth, and the life. Right? As Christianity and Greek thought spread through the West, an emphasis on the comprehension of truth via reason took root. Presuppositions about rational thought and the laws of nature spawned mathematic, scientific, and artistic advancements, most famously during the Renaissance. A few centuries later, Enlightenment thinkers began to break away from the theistic grounding of the Western pursuit of truth. Big mistake, right? We must pursue truth. And by the way, going back there before we get it, if you have God, you have truth, right? If you have God, you have clear authority. That's why the Marxists have to destroy God. Critical theory has to destroy God. You've got to destroy anything that gets in the way of power, control, which God would get in the way of that because God's laws would be what? Higher than man's. So the Western pursuit of truth, elevating reason alone as a sufficient basis for a functioning society. Modernism rejected the Enlightenment obsession with reason as the booming industrial world sought to overcome nature and its laws and limits. As religious foundations continued to crumble, relativism emerged and completely unmoored itself from traditional assumptions about objective and noble truth. Now, there are still objectable truths. We know them. The critical theory is trying to destroy them, trying to destroy truth, basic truths. Today, we see factual relativism as well as moral. Not only does our prevailing social ethic tolerate individual self-determination of what's right for me. Hey, man, if it's good for you, it's good for you. Hey, if it's good for me, it's good for me. Remember those? I've had arguments with people like that in Los Angeles. Hey, man, whatever's good for you is going to, until you say, well, wait, if somebody came in here and damaged this whole restaurant and hurt every single person in here, it self-destructs pretty quickly. They say, well, no, that's wrong. What's right for me? We've gone so far to nod along when a man says he is actually a woman. Now, this is big with us. Men are men and women are women. That is truth. It cannot be changed. And what does God say in Genesis? Male and female, two sexes, male and female. And it denigrates women. And it denigrates men to say anything else. What's the goal there? Critical theory wants to destroy women. To speak your truth as distinct from the truth. Let's just say it one more time. Men are men, women are women, and we must stand for that truth. To speak your truth as distinct from the truth is a moral victory to be praised, according to our prevalent irrational dogma. Our cultural rejection of reason is evident in every field. Look at the deconstruction of sculptures and poetry that pass for art, or the assault on the fixed rational rules of mathematics. In this cultural condition, people are no longer equipped to speak in terms of truth, grounded in divinely appointed laws of nature, discernible by human reason. Those concepts aren't in our contemporary vocabulary. It's true, right? How many people are talking about truth, goodness, and beauty, and can define beauty and defend beauty? Because that's another one that critical theory tries to attack. Critical theory tries to invert or attack all of truth, goodness, beauty. Truth isn't fragile, but regime-approved narratives are. Truth isn't fragile, but regime-approved narratives are. In granting the preliminary injunction, Judge Doughty explains, quote, "It is the purpose of the free speech clause of the First Amendment to preserve an uninhibited marketplace of ideas in which truth will ultimately prevail, rather than to countenance monopolization of the market, whether it be by government itself or private lessons," end of quote. Now look, We're on the side of, look, when those founders wrote the First Amendment, they were giving you the ability to disagree with your government, and the federal government's not supposed to infringe the press or infringe free speech in any way, the federal government. Okay? That was the First Amendment. It was written to protect you from the federal government. Let's go on. The essential context and goal of meaningful free speech, a world in which ideas are debated openly, so that what may triumph? What may triumph? Truth, right? Is no longer feasible when ideas cease to be judged on their merits and are instead judged by the intensity with which a person feels them to be true, right? It's what is true, not how you feel about it. We've got all these people that think if they feel like a woman, they're a woman. That doesn't make you a woman. If you're a woman and you feel like a boy, it doesn't make you a boy. Okay, it doesn't. How you feel doesn't determine what you are. You're a man or you're a woman. That's it. When there's no longer an agreed upon concept of truth, and this is important, we're going to stand on this. Ideas are reduced to those which you agree with and those you don't. You see the difference? See when there's no longer an agreed upon concept of truth, and where can truth come from? It can come from God, right? God sets truth. Ideas are reduced to those. That's why they have always got to destroy God. That's a clear authority. If you don't have God, you got to go to the virtues and vices and philosophy. Aristotle, Plato. When you can't rely on your ideas to endure simply because they're true, contradictory perspectives and ideas become more of a threat. You get that? What's that mean? When you can't rely on your ideas to endure simply because they're true, contradictory perspectives and ideas become more of a threat. So what do they have to do? They have to shut it down. They have to control that narrative. So let's give you an example, because this is the big one going on right now, but there are many we could pick through COVID and other. They had to shut the mass narrative down, right? They had to shut information about drugs that you could take that were free, right? Shut that down. That was not the narrative they wanted. Shut the doctors down that told something different than their narrative they wanted to tell. And here's a big one. And that Michigan law proves this. We have the truth, right? And we have ideas, and we will win on them if we stand for them. Because the truth wins. Men are men and women are women. This is a huge one, and they're fighting it at all levels. We've gone through some of it. We could keep going. Who's they? Well, we've seen who the attack. Michigan, right now, the state assembly just passed a bill that I believe it was created to intimidate you into saying the pronouns. Now, maybe we'll get to it and read it so you can understand it clearly, but it's about intimidation, fines, going to jail. But clearly, it's written to shut down and intimidate on speech so that you won't say it, right? I believe that's the clear intention. Why? Because contradictory perspectives and ideas become more of a threat. That's why the federal government had to shut down the Hunter Biden story. They knew it was true. That's why the federal government had to shut down narratives they don't like during all of COVID. All those narratives they didn't like had to be shut down, you see? Because if we have the truth, and the truth will win, right? The truth is magnificently great in shutting down mass psychosis. It's been proven, and groups and communities. So if you have the truth, this side, the anti-freedom side, wants to shut it down so they can spread their narratives. Let's go on. Enter the pervasive concept of misinformation. Remember all that going on? Fact checkers, misinformation. Who was doing that? Who was doing it? Who was in control of that? Who was deciding what was misrepresentation? What was not a fact? What was the context? Remember all that going on, still going on? It's not a new term. Noah Webster defined it in 1828 as false account or intelligence received. The very idea of misinformation, as it was understood in Webster's time, was basically a photo negative of truth. One could be misinformed, but the false account could be understood to be false. You see? Precisely because it what? Contradicted something that was true. And we know the truth. Men are men, women are women. But in a post-rational world, misinformation means something else. One of the government bureaucrats accused in Missouri v. Biden of working to censor Americans admitted as much. Quote, and this is an amazing quote. You got to hear this. CISA Director Easterly quoted, I believe it's Jen Esterly, anyway, it's Esterly, stated, quote, "We live in a world where people talk about alternative facts, post-truth, which I think is really, really dangerous if people get to pick their own facts. Now, that's an amazing statement to make from a federal government person who's not supposed to infringe at all upon free speech. She works for the federal government. This is an amazing comment to make, according to Doughty. Of course, if everyone is picking his own facts, the government doing so is no different. As Doughty concluded, the free speech clause was enacted to prohibit just what Director Easterly is wanting to do: allow the government to pick what is true and what is false. We can't have that. That won't work in this republic. That's not the American way, gentlemen and ladies. If there's no ultimate truth, then all that's left is the prevailing narrative, right? They are big on their super narratives and narrative. You've got to accept their narratives, your Crane, whatever the next narrative, and what's next? It's a joke, right? What's next? Where is everybody going? Where are they going to push you to? Prevailing narrative and Russian collusion. Information that challenges the narrative, misinformation. Government censors can make an appeal to reported facts or scientific studies, but man is fallible. And these conclusions have no grounding if they are rooted in no higher law than the men who derive them. Higher law. That's because, and here we get to the philosophy, to the God part. That's because truth is inseparable from what? Goodness. And by the way, beauty's under attack, so I think we'll do a whole video on beauty. It's more than sterile informational accuracy. To be true is to reflect the created order that is ultimately good, because its creator is what? Goodness himself. So God is goodness. Man possesses the knowledge of good and evil, right? And it cost him dearly. Until we admit the language of goodness and its opposite back into our cultural vocabulary, we'll be squabbling over, quote, misinformation. So we have to restore truth. And who will get to define those words? The government, right? They're trying. Right here, the federal government's trying to define truth, trying to define. So here's the thing. We must restore truth, order, beauty, goodness. And the left wants to destroy beauty. Look at all the magazine covers. First of all, men are men and women are women. And what does that also mean? That means you cannot win. If you're a man entering a beauty contest for women, you cannot be, quote, a beautiful woman, because you're not a woman. If you're entering a sports race as a man in a woman's contest, you cannot win because you're not a woman and it's a woman's contest. You can never be a woman. Girls can never be a man. So you cannot be. So these Vogue covers and Victoria's Secret and all these people that are pushing this foolishness on us, that's an attack on beauty. And I want to read just something about beauty. There is order to beauty. There was a study done with babies. Let's read this real quick. Now, beauty is under attack, and the internal beauty of a woman, feminine beauty, internal, is under attack, and the external beauty is under attack. Let's read a little bit from this Stanford. Okay, let's read a little bit from this, plato.stanford.edu. Though Plato and Aristotle disagree on what beauty is, they both regard it as objective in the sense that it is not localized in the response of the beholder. Big key there. The classical conception, what do the left tries to tell you? Oh, it's whatever you think. Oh, whatever beauty is to you. Beauty is whatever you think it is. Whatever you think beauty is, it's beauty to you, right? The classical conception treats, that's not what it was in the Greeks. Remember Aphrodite in that story? She wanted to be what? The classical conception treats beauty as a matter of defined, definite proportions or relations. So proportions are parts, sometimes expressed in mathematical ratios. By the way, they did a test with babies, and they could recognize beauty based on the symmetry. And they would have, it wasn't based on age. They had all these different people of ages. And if the people were symmetrical, the baby thought they were pretty. So let's go on. And what I'm saying is there's an objectiveness to beauty. The classical conception treats beauty, and they want to wipe out the beauty of a woman. That's what the left and Marxist and critical theory do. They want to wipe out the good, but we're talking about beauty real quickly, and then we'll do a whole piece on beauty, because it's very important, because look what they're doing in the magazines. It's not that they just want to wipe out athletes and women athletes. They want to wipe out the internal and external beauty of a woman, and external beauty counts. The feminists hate external beauty and they hate beautiful women. That's why they're trying to change the definition too. But critical theory wants to reorient, to change the definition of beauty. Beauty is important, and we should protect it along with truth and goodness. Where are we at? The sculpture known as the canon was held up a model of what? Harmonious proportion, to be calculated by students and masters alike. Beauty could be reliably achieved by reproducing its objective proportions. So going back to that study with the babies, they knew symmetry, they knew proportions, they knew what a beautiful man and woman were supposed to look like as a baby without anyone teaching them anything. Right? Now the left would tell you that's later when the beauty is defined, but it's because society told you that, but the babies knew. You see? So they knew what a beautiful woman was, what a beautiful man was. And beauty, protecting it, and truth are both important. You see how the left and the Marxists want to destroy what beauty is. You see all the magazine covers. You see that woman the other night, that man that won the most beautiful woman in that contest. How's that possible? It's not. It's impossible. It's an untruth. Ministry of Truth. Oh, and I wanted to read this too. And it is conventional and ancient treatments of the topics to pay tribute to the pleasures of beauty, right? Often described in quite aesthetic terms. Quote, this is the spirit that beauty must ever induce, wonderment and a delicious trouble, longing and love and a trembling that is all delight. Plotinus. So it's objective, right? And this is the spirit that beauty must ever induce, wonderment, right? When you see a beautiful painting, even when you see a painting of a mother with a child on a beach with a beautiful sunset behind it, what is that? That can be beautiful, right? Because in that is goodness, right? You kind of feel and see the love of a mother to a child, which is a beautiful thing. That's goodness, right? And then there's a beautiful, well-proportioned woman in a painting or in real life that can inspire artists, that can inspire people. You know what beauty is, though. There was a girl that called me and she went into Victoria's Secret and she said, this is ridiculous. What are people aspiring to this? So even she knew and appreciated beauty. So there you go. So truth, beauty, and goodness are important, right? And look how they try to invert it. And let's end with this quote, and maybe we'll come back and do a whole video on it and one on beauty. This is a good piece. This is important, right? Because these are the structure. This is what gives you the roots of society if you know truth, beauty, order, justice, these things. But today we're focused on truth, beauty, goodness. Isaiah 5:20. Watch how they reverse and watch how they invert. And what are they doing to the children right now? We just discussed it. What are they doing to beauty in the magazines? They're changing. They're trying to change your perception of beauty, which is damaging. Your perception of truth, which is damaging. Your perception of goodness. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. So that's Isaiah. Maybe we'll do the whole chapter and what was going on then, but we're at the end of this. They substitute beauty for ugliness, right? They try to make you think abnormal or ugliness is beautiful. It's not. They substitute truth for lies and misrepresentation. See how they invert all this? We have to be aware of it. So here's the thing. Let's end with this. Stand for truth because it's the winner. We have the truth. It's about ideas. It breaks mass psychosis. And it's the right thing to do. So stand for truth, beauty, and goodness. Thank you. If you like this video, like it. It helps the algorithm. And please subscribe. Pass to your friends and share it. Thank you and have a magnificent day.